Castro did a lot of good things, especially for Nelson Mandela. If it wasn't for Fidel Castro, Nelson Mandela would have never gotten his freedom, especially when you had the United States government and the apartheid government who, they're in cahoots. They're on the same side. So the United States government fought against Nelson Mandela. So Fidel Castro got that right? Fidel Castro sent troops in to defend Angola, so, to defend the nation, their sovereignty. He got that right. Fidel Castro has started the literacy program, free education, free health care. He got those things right. And his doctor program, the medical program, they're known throughout the whole world. That's why when the Ebola breakout happened in Africa, Cuba sent a whole bunch of doctors to go take care of the damn thing. What'd we do? Just, okay, we got to stop flights from Africa now. But the Cubans are like, oh, we're going to solve this thing. We're going to, get down to the bottom of this. So there's just some facts about Cuba. The president of the republic is Bermudez. Bermudez, like Bermuda, but Bermudez. Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez. He was handpicked by Raul Castro to succeed him. He was approved by the National Assembly by 99%. Then he took office April 19th, 2018. So for the last 2 years, there's no Castros in power, right? The president is this Bermudez. We still going to hate the literacy program and the health care and the education, or now that you don't have... Okay, so the brand new Constitution. So we got this Bermudez, who's the president today. It's February or March, end of February 2020. They passed the Constitution April 10th, 2019. So Cuba just got a brand new president. Fidel died 2016, so Fidel died 4 years ago. 2 years after that, brand new president. 3 years after that, brand new Constitution. So, April 10th, 2019, Constitution. Cuba's got a brand new Constitution. Britain doesn't have a Constitution nor a guaranteed codified Bill of Rights. Cuba's got a National Assembly of People Powered. They got a legislative branch, a judicial branch, and then the referendum, the people approved of the Constitution February 24th, 2019, and then it came into law. So Cuba's got a brand new Constitution. They got an April 10th, 2019 Constitution, brand new president who got in there just 1 year prior. Now, America has put the embargo in place since 1961. The Cuban Communist Party is the only political party sanctioned and members run unopposed. So that's sort of the corruption, but there are elections. And then to, point out their elections, we have shitty democracy here. So to sit there and say that their democracy isn't good enough, this democracy here, look at Iowa. Yeah, great fucking democracy. Look at third parties and independents. Yeah, great democracy there. No, they don't stand a chance, but I thought anybody could be president. Yes. In America, anybody can be president except for Ralph Nader. He's the only one that cannot be president. So Cuba has had to endure the economic sanctions, which hurt their economy, but it hasn't sunk them. Cuba's just right off the coast of Florida, 150 kilometers south of Key West. Cuba is slightly smaller than Pennsylvania. It's the largest country in the Caribbean. There's 11 million people in Cuba. 25% of the Cubans are obese. That means 4 million Cubans are fat. That's according to 2016. So they're a developing nation, but 1/4 of them are fat. So they're doing, that's good, right, for developing nations. GDP of Cuba is $255 billion, which is respectable. It's 22,000 per capita. The peso is Cuba's currency, which that could be the problem right there. They use a peso, and then they change it. They need to change it to the Cuban dollar. And you got the primary care for infants. They're available all throughout Cuba. So you have health care, which is available all throughout Cuba. You got the Cuban health paradox. It's a developing nation, so therefore it's a third world, but it's 30th in the 2019 Bloomberg Healthiest Country Index. So therefore they have, good markings, good health care, a lot of doctors. The U.S. embargo has been around for 60 years. We tightened it up in 1992 for some reason. Cuba has the highest doctors to population ratio in the world. They sent thousands of doctors to more than 40 countries throughout the year. The World Health Organization knows that Cuban doctors are top shelf. So the World Health Organization talks about how, great Cuba is. Cuba went and tried to help out with the Ebola crisis in Africa. Cuba developed a successful lung cancer vaccine, Sinovac. Sinovac is a free vaccine given to the Cuban people since 2011, but we've blocked ourselves. Since we have an embargo on Cuba, we can't get any of their innovations. They have a vaccine which prevents lung cancer. In 2015, Cuba ended the mother-to-child transmission of HIV and syphilis. Well, this is the WHO, World Health Organization, says that's one of the greatest public health achievements ever. Ending HIV, ending a mother giving her child HIV, ending a mother giving her child syphilis, making sure lung cancer forever. You get a vaccine, you'll never get lung cancer. It prevents and protects your lungs until the day you die. But no, America, we're so smart. We're like, you know what? We want our children to get HIV and syphilis. You know what? We don't care if our lungs get a bunch of cancer, and we don't want the vaccine. We're going to put an embargo on Cuba until the day we die. And I bet you most people don't even know why are we embargoing Cuba? Because they're socialist? So it's a propaganda tool just to make it seem like socialism is bad? So Cuba, they've played a leading role in combating the Ebola virus epidemic in West Africa. And they don't own any, they're not taking over any land in America, but we have Guantanamo Bay. Apparently it's leased by the U.S., so we pay for it, but I'm not for sure if they could kick us out or not. So the head of the government is Prime Minister Manuel Cruz since December 19th, 2019. Many governments have a head of state and a head of government, a president, and a prime minister. I think France does it. A lot of countries do that. Russia. So they'll have the face for the nation, the PR for the nation, the president, and then they'll have the prime minister, who actually is the head of government, who actually runs the show. So who actually runs the show is Manuel Cruz. Since last year, December 19th, 2019. So that's the new prime minister who's going to run Cuba along with this Bermudez. Bermudez is the president for 2 years, and then this new prime minister for a couple months. So Manuel Cruz and Bermudez are the ones that run Cuba. So if you don't even know, you hate the Castros, but do you hate the whole nation of Cuba? Do you even know the president? Do you even know who they have it's a constitutional republic. Their national colors are red, white, and blue. They have 3 branches of government: legislative branch, judicial branch. They have elections. In fact, 16 and 17-year-olds are allowed to vote in their elections. They have universal health care, universal education. The National Assembly of People Power elects a president and vice president. It's an indirect election. The people themselves don't vote for the president, but the legislature does. And the next presidential election in Cuba is 2024, so 4 more years. So this is going to be who runs Cuba. Manuel Cruz. Manuel Cruz, I guess, is the uncle of Ted Cruz. And then you have Bermudez, who, never got lost in the Bermudez, right? That's Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez. So those are the people who run Cuba. Their legislature, it's a unicameral branch called the National Assembly of People Power. National Assembly of People Power. So they got, they've set their shit up. They got a constitution. Britain don't even have a constitution. I want to mention just some commonalities, like America. When you learn about American history, it starts out with Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus discovers America. He never even set foot in any of the United States of America. He did go into Cuba. He did go into the Hispanic Dominican Republic and Haiti. So these islands in the Caribbean he discovered, but not the actual United States of America. He didn't land in Florida. He didn't land in Georgia. He landed in Cuba. And for several centuries, Cuba is going to be a Spanish colony, just like Haiti and the Dominican Republic. African slaves are going to be imported to work in the coffee and sugar plantations on the encomiendas. In 1529, measles killed about 2/3 of the natives still living. Just like in small-town USA, just like in Mike Pence's Indiana. Havana became a launching point for large treasure fleets for Spain from Peru and Mexico. So the Spanish royalty would get all these large treasure fleets meeting at Havana, and then they would go off to Spain. So they would steal all the wealth of Peru, steal all the wealth of Mexico, land it all in Havana, and then from Havana go to Spain. Hernando de Soto is a conquistador. Reportedly, maybe the first white man in Kentucky. He's going to march from Florida down the eastern United States, and then he's going to die of disease. They're going to throw him in the Mississippi River, so this is going to be the last of his conquistadoring days. He's going to depart from Havana to Florida in 1539. Then the French is going to take Havana 1555. The British English take Cuba in 1762. The Paris Peace Treaty is going to see British and the Spanish trade. Florida for Cuba. So the Spain still gets to keep Cuba, but the British now get Florida. And at the time, there's 500,000 African slaves. So, yeah, they've upped the amount of slaves that they need on the island, right? Batista is going to be a dictator for 7 years. Fidel Castro is going to rule after the Cuban Revolution in 1959. So I want to just talk about the, beginnings, because Christopher Columbus is the beginning of American history. Columbus is the beginning of Cuba history too, right? Prehistory of those damn natives, but history, recorded history, begins with Columbus. So both Cuba and the United States begins. Actually, Cuba actually began with Columbus. America had nothing to do with Columbus, which should be a good thing. I don't know why we're gonna, hang on to this genocidal racist, kind of dumbass. They're Indians. It's not India. You know what the fuck you're talking about, Chris Columbus. But my point is that they had Native Americans, there's genocide, they have imperialism, Christopher Columbus, colonies, African slaves. This is American history. The French, the British, the Spanish, all, fighting to take a little tiny piece of land. This is all American history. We had all these things in our, in the beginning of our republic. The French and Indian War. You had the Spanish, what was that one guy? The guy almost became president or vice, Aaron Burr. Aaron Burr, the Spanish conspiracy. So Aaron Burr, who kills Alexander Hamilton, was actually a spy for the Spanish government. So the Spanish conspiracy. So the Spanish were around. You also had the Swedish and the Dutch and a lot of imperialists in America in the beginning. But, yeah, I mean, we're all the same anyways. I mean, I don't even know why I have to say that. We're all people, right? They live in the landmass. We live in the landmass. We're people. They're people. America is Cuba, and Cuba is America. So, yeah, there's some facts about today's Cuba. Peace.